Back in February 2019, I purchased this Staccato C shortly after they came out, and this was also the very first video that we did on Riders Range back in May of 2019. So why are we doing another Staccato C video? Well, because we're doing the Staccato C DUO, which we're going to get to here in just a minute. And some people will say, wait a minute, the only difference is they made an optics cut on it. And, you know, at first glance, that it seems to be the only difference. An optics cut with a removable plate, and oh, by the way, they bumped the price about $200. But when you really get into it, there's a whole lot more going on in the way it changes in the Staccato C versus the Staccato C DUO. Now, we're also going to put a Sig ROMEOZero sight on this, and you may ask, why a Sig ROMEOZero? Why a plastic sight on a nice gun? Well, there is a reason for that, and we'll get to that toward the end of the video, so stick around and find out why we're starting off with the Sig ROMEOZero, but we're actually going to, as soon as we can, change to a Holosun 507K. I just happen to have a second one of these. And you'll know my fondness for not just the Holosun 507K, but also carry optics in general. If you go tune into this video up here, that's the one on our Sig 365 XL with the Holosun. We've actually done a couple of videos on that. That link will be to the 1,000-round review of it. So let's take a look at what the differences are between the original Staccato C and the new Staccato C DUO. If you go back and look at that original video, they both come in a really nice range type bag for carry. Really nicely done by STI, and by the way, it's no longer STI. That's one of the changes on this. When I bought the first gun, the STI International made the Staccato C. Now the company is just called Staccato 2011. They changed their name just a few months ago. So let's take a look and see what we get. Very first thing you're going to notice is 3 magazines. The original Staccato came with 2, and I praised it at the time for coming with 2 because a lot of manufacturers only send it with 1. And that's actually one of the early noticeable differences in the original Staccato C versus the Staccato C DUO, and that is just the floor plate of the magazine. These are conventional floor plates of the width of the magazine now, instead of extended beyond the width of the magazine. So, change number 1. Well, 2 if you count the fact that there's 3 of them. This gun is obviously built for heroes, made in the USA, made down in Texas. And inside, I bought this direct from Dawson Precision. So of course Dawson sends its safety considerations and its Dawson Precision pistol oiling instructions. And with this one you also get the Staccato's new DUO cover plate. Talks to you a little bit about that. And of course all the usual paperwork that comes with it, with its warnings and notices and whatnot. So here is the Staccato C DUO, and inside here you'll see change number 2, and that is the holster. The original one, in fact I said in the original video, it's a good thing that it came with a holster, and this is the one the original Staccato C came with, because the shape of the trigger guard and the fact it has a rail makes it a little more difficult to fit. And back in early 2019 it was hard to find a holster for this. They're a little more prevalent now, but significant changes between the original holster and the new one. Clip design is different. It's got what some might call a little wing on that to hold it a little tighter into the body. Protected on both sides for ambi use. It is obviously cut down more for the optic, and this one is made by Crucial Concealment. I understand if you go to the Crucial Concealment website though, you won't find the holster for the STI Staccato C, and it does look like this is ambidextrous, whereas this one is fixed for inside the waistband, right hand only. So change number 2. And before we get into all the other changes, we'll look at all the other little stuff that comes with the Staccatos these days. Of course, you get a nice bicycle lock. I don't know if anybody actually uses those to lock their gun. Maybe they do. Let's see, some desiccant, test target, and I don't see if it says what size. 9mm minor caliber. That's fine. Built by Heroes. Customer service card. This came with some other stuff in it. Youth Handgun Safety Act. Instructions. And now we get into some of the good stuff. This does come with wrenches, all sorts of good wrenches. Sight adjustment tool for drifting the sight. And takedown tools. I don't remember the last one coming with a takedown tool. More wrenches. Wrenches and screws. Fibers for the front sight. If they happen to come out, you got 4 different colors in there. And it comes with some Loctite and some Hoppy's High Performance Precision gun oil. And here is the main reason that I bought this gun. I'm getting into carry optics. I really like the carry optic idea. I really like my Staccato. So you pop out the sight plate, we'll get to that in just a minute, and you put this in, and you can put on a Sig ROMEOZero sight, or you can put on a Shield RMS-C or a JP J-point sight. Now on my 365, which by the way is unloaded, no magazine, nothing in the chamber. This has been my carry gun for quite a while, even though I'm a 1911 guy. Got the Holosun sight on here, and this fit right on, even though the 365 said it would take the Shield RMS-C and the Sig ROMEOZero sight. The Holosun fit right on. So that's one of the reasons that I bought the STI, figuring that I should be able to put it on. If it worked on the Sig, it ought to work on this. Well, no, it doesn't. The locking points for the ROMEOZero and the Shield are toward the back. On the Holosun, they're toward the front. So I just took delivery of this yesterday, realized that my 507K sight is not going to fit on this, so got a hold of Dawson, and they answered the phone right away. In fact, the same guy that took the order to when I bought the gun answered the phone. We discussed this one, and he said that they are in the process of manufacturing a plate for the 507, but they don't have it out yet. So another trip back to my local gun shop, and that's when I picked up the ROMEOZero. So we're going to start out with this. Actually, we'll probably start out shooting a pattern with iron sights, see how that works out. Then we're going to put this on, and that's going to be the carry optic until I get the plate for my 507. All right, enough of that. Let's look at the differences now. And again, there are more differences than initially meets the eye. Oh, this is not a true unboxing because I did take this gun out yesterday, took it apart, oiled it, and looked at some of the specs and stats on it, and compared that with my existing gun, and put it all back in the case. I have not shot this gun yet. So let's talk about differences. We mentioned the obvious one, and that is the optics cut on the top of the DUO. By the way, DUO stands for Dawson Universal Optics. STI and Dawson Precision have worked together in putting this together. So, one obvious difference. The second one is maybe not quite as obvious initially, but that is the rail on the bottom. And if you look at the rail on the original one here on the left, it's a 2-slot Picatinny rail. On the right, it's a 1-slot. And I stopped to say, why? Well, again, I'm not a big light fan. If you looked at our controversial video on firearms lights for civilians, I'll put the link up here, you know that I'm not a personal fan of that for duty, yes. But then again, these aren't really duty guns. So the one light that I do have is the Streamlight TRL1, and it only mounts to the forwardmost slot on the rail. It doesn't use the rear. So really, that is all you need, just that one rail slot. I'm not sure of anything that would mount farther back. So obvious difference number one is the rail. Also, while we're looking at the rail, the initial gun said STI International on it. The DUO just calls it Staccato because that's now the name of the company. Right. So next up is something that is, again, a little less obvious. If you look at the original one, it is just a straight cut slide. The DUO has a slight, what some people call a Browning cut or a high power cut, and the slide narrows just a little bit at the front. All right, not an obvious difference, subtle, functional. With forward cocking serrations, you don't need that cut. It does cut the weight a little bit. We'll talk about weight here in a couple of minutes. And as long as we're talking about cocking serrations, rear cocking serrations are also a little bit different. If you notice on the original Staccato C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 aggressive ridges for the cocking serrations. The Duo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a little more unused space at the back of the slide. So just a little bit different on that. Another subtle difference that's not real noticeable. As long as we're on the slide, it may not show up well here in the camera, but the flat on the top of the slide is, you can see on the right is the original Staccato C, and on the left is the new Staccato C DUO. You can see that flat is just a little bit narrower on the new one than it is on the old one. They both have the same fiber optic sight on the front. Everything else looks pretty much the same on it, except the barrel's a little different in appearance. We'll talk about barrel here in just a minute. So that flat, again, a subtle change, but still there. As long as we're on the slide, the slide stop lever, just a little bit different. And you can see there that on the original Staccato, it's your pretty much typical 1911. On the Duo, it is a larger contact surface. It sticks out just a hair more, not a lot, but you can definitely grip this one better. It's more assertive or more aggressive and a little bit larger. So again, a subtle difference. We flip it over, another somewhat subtle difference. The slide stop lever axle or pin is not quite flush cut. It does stick out just a little bit, but it is flattened on it, and not necessarily any more functional or less functional. The new Staccato C DUO is rounded as opposed to flat, still sticks out just about as much. And hammer shape, okay, a little bit, by the way, all of these are unloaded. You can see the hammer is shaped different. Here's the original one. It's more of a square cut, both skeletonized, rounded off on the Staccato C DUO. But what really first caught my eye is the serrations on the top of the hammer. You can see that they're, let's see if I can get up to the camera. They're there, but not real assertive on the original. On the Duo, they're much larger, much more assertive, much easier to get a purchase on. Not that I've ever had any problem my hand slipping on the original one. And that now takes us down to the barrel. One of my complaints in the original video was the fact that you got pretty much an industrial finish on the barrel in the original Staccato. It wasn't flush cut with the slide like a lot of others are, and it was just flat, no crown, no nothing. A couple of minor changes on that. It's a little bit more polished now on the new Staccato C barrel. It still sticks out, it's not flush cut with the slide, but it does have, you can't really see it well here, it does have ever so slight of a crown to it. So again, a subtle but functional touch by getting that crown does protect the inside of the barrel just a little bit. And here's where I come up with a surprising difference, and that is the weight. Now Staccato, excuse me, Staccato is the name of the company, bills the new gun at 26.6 ounces, and 25.5 is what I'm getting on the Staccato C DUO. The original one comes out at 26.4, so an ounce difference, and I certainly can't believe that the Browning cut or high power cut on the front of the slide made up the difference. So I'm not sure where that difference is at this point. But other than that, they are, well, there's still one more difference we'll get to in just a minute. But they look very similar. The grips are all, actually there's a couple more differences. Yeah, the grips are the same. I complained in the original one that it's a nice feel to the grip, but there's not a lot of traction on here. No 25 line per inch checkering or anything. It has their own texture on it. Of course, the star on the side, that's nice. And one of the complaints I had in the original video is I like to change grips on my 1911. You can't do it on this. This is what it is. The polymer grip component is part of the hybrid frame, where the rest of the frame is aluminum. And You don't change them. They are what they are. But it's also a very comfortable grip, very practical grip. And on the back is where we get another change on the grip, though. By the way, I do like the fact that the heel is rounded. Everybody making an officer-sized gun ought to round the heel for concealed carry. It makes it more comfortable shooting and more concealable. But you'll notice that there's a difference in the mainspring housing. Dull, grayish, doesn't quite match the grips on the original one, and almost a gloss on the new one, but again, still doesn't quite match the grip. So maybe a color somewhere in between the gray and the black to provide a little bit less contrast between the mainspring housing and the grip itself. But same chevrons on it, same functionality to it. You can see on the back, fitment is the same. The fitment of the extractor, fitment of the slide to frame, all about the same between the two guns. Similar back sights, obviously. The one on the left is just a plain black ledge type sight. One on the right is attached to the optics plate, but still gives the same functionality of the just a plain black sight, which I do like, by the way. And before we get into the last major difference on this, I do want to mention that they still did fix my main complaint about, well, one of my main complaints about this gun, and that is the magazine release. It's functional, it works, but it really doesn't protrude much, and I found that sometimes I have to change my grip on this gun just a little bit to actually be able to get my thumb around and release the magazine. So I mentioned at the time it'd be nice if it was just a little bit more pronounced and if it had some traction to it. There's no traction. This is perfectly smooth, and unfortunately exactly the same thing on this gun. I imagine it's going to work just the same, and I can get used to it, but there have been a couple times I fumbled a reload just because I couldn't get my thumb to work that quite the way I wanted it to. All right, so that brings us down to me, the last big difference in this. Again, it's not obvious looking at it, but in the original video I mentioned that for some people, by the way, again, these are unloaded. I mentioned in the first video I was using a spring gauge then. It came in at 2.5 pounds. Wonderful trigger, no over travel. Of course, it does have an adjustable over travel stop in it. They both do. Plastic face trigger. Yeah, some people will scoff at that. I'm okay with it. Hardly any play, no vertical movement on it. That's nice. Real short pull, real short reset. Very nice trigger. I got about 2,000 rounds through this gun now, and I measured that with a digital gauge last night, and it was 2 pounds 3 ounces over 5 pulls. Very consistent. So to me, that's pretty light. I like my triggers around 3.5. STI bills these at around a 4-pound trigger pull. So again, this one still has the over travel stop, plastic face, same thing. So the new one, still nice, has just a hair over travel. For a defensive gun, it's okay, and of course I can adjust that out with the adjustment screw on it. But the trigger feels the same with one exception, and that is it's a little bit heavier. Over 5 pulls, that came out to 3 pounds 8 ounces, right where I want to carry a gun. So that's been taken care of. Now again, these could be just because they're my guns. Your mileage may vary. But I like it. I like the feel of it. Now, I did say in the original video that it didn't have a lot of personality. It's more of an appliance, and it still somewhat has more of an appliance feel. Could that be the fact that the grip doesn't feel like your traditional 1911? It's close, but no cigar. So is it still going to be an appliance? I don't know. I want to get a good optic on this. I want to carry it. I want to get a lot of rounds through it, and I want to find out if it is in fact going to be something that will replace my 365 XL with the manual safety, of course, and let me get back to a 1911 with a carry optic. Yeah, I'm going to give up a few rounds, but you know, if you can't resolve a serious social situation as a civilian with 8 in the magazine and 1 more 9mm up the snout, then maybe you should have called in sick, and I think I mentioned that in my original video too. So that brings us down to the question again: why am I going to put a ROMEOZero on there when I've got the Holosun, and that comes back to what we already mentioned, that I can't get an optics plate for it. I want to shoot this with an optic. I'm going to shoot it with an optic, and my local gun store gave me a good price on this, and I'm going to see how it works. I would not want to carry one of these any long term. Personally, I hope it holds zero. Well, that'll be the biggest concern. The polymer housing on it, no. Sage Dynamics is good at testing sights. He put his 2,000 round torture test for the Holosun 507K, which included shoulder height drops onto concrete from every 500 rounds, and I think it did crack the lens in that, but the sight still held zero. It was still functional. I've got more than 1,200 rounds now through my 365 XL with that Holosun on it. It's still holding zero beautifully, and it's still working just fine. So this is not a review of the ROMEOZero, not a review certainly of the Holosun. It's a look at the differences and similarities between the original Staccato C and the new for 2020, the Staccato C DUO. Why didn't I go to the Staccato C2? Again, I'm a carry guy, not an open carry. I'm concealed, and the grip on the C2 just doesn't work for me. And now I can carry a double stack. I carry an EDCX9. I've carried the CZP01. I've even carried a Glock 19. The grip configuration on those is more contoured and more of a suitable profile for concealed carry. This is where Staccato just didn't get it right, but maybe they didn't intend the C2 for or its variants for concealed carry. So I'm happy with the single stack. It's still my 1911 design, even though it is obviously a 2011. Differences, a lot more than most people would suspect. We're going to, this is going to be probably a 3-part series by the time we're done with it. We're going to put the optic on this. First of all, we're going to sight it in, then put the optic in, sight it in again, and we're going to start running ammo through it. Now, with the ammo shortage currently in the summer of 2020, I'm still okay. I can do a 1,000-round test on it. I may not quite push it that far. Just I don't want to have to get my ammunition and my reloading supplies down quite that low. But we'll see where it goes. So we'll bring this back in at some point and let you know how the long term is on it. And we'll also probably do one looking at the difference between the Sig ROMEOZero and the Holosun 507K sight. If you like this video, we certainly do appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, click on the notifications bell so you know what's coming up on Riders Range. We do appreciate comments on this video down below, and comments on anything else. Please send your questions or comments to info@ridersrange.com. Check our website, www.ridersrange.com. And it's a not so quick look. According to the timer I'm looking at here, we're well north of 20 minutes. Sorry about that. But that's looking at the similarities and the significant differences between the Staccato C and the Staccato C DUO for 2020. That's it. Thanks for visiting Riders Range.